Welcome to the Time for Heroes podcast.
My name's Greg Kane. I play a band with him, Pat Kane, a Hue and Cry,
That's who we are.
and you're listening to the Heroes podcast. No, what the fuck?
Class. I think it's better when there's a wee mistake there as well.
Right.
You've been alluding to Comedy Gold before we started, so I that fits into that mold, Greg. Pat and Greg Kane, otherwise known as Hue and Cry, new album coming out May the 29th. We're going to talk about that, but we're going to go right back to the start. So, what was life like for a young Pat and Greg growing up in Lanarkshire?
Lanarkshire. Well,
North Lanarkshire.
North Lanarkshire. It was an upper working class experience, by which I mean some roughness, but lots of aspiration. And I mean, probably the most Lanarkshire thing about it is my father had saved up £400, was it, to go and see Celtic play in Lisbon in the European Cup final. And in 1967, my mother's dream house came up in the street across from where from the scheme from where she was then living. No greater love does a man have for his wife than to give up his £400 that he was going to spend going to Lisbon to see Celtic play in the European Cup final, to put down as a deposit for a house. So that's how upper working class we were.
There's no many guys who'd have done that back then. When you hear all the stories of people leaving their missus at the altar and all that to get to Lisbon.
Well, it showed the quality of my father. Obviously, a high romantic.
He was very proud of that house, though. I think he made the right choice.
Yeah.
And so, round about the house then, with your mother and father, were they into music? How did that kind of shape your music?
Our grandfather passed away, my mum's stepdad, and he bequeathed an upright piano. So I remember that arriving in the house when he died. And then my father was a great singer, so he was always singing around the house. There was an awful lot of music all the time, I must admit.
You had Mrs. Buchanan 2 doors down, 3 doors down.
A piano teacher. Yes, yeah, there was a piano arrived in the house. My piano teacher from when I was 7 years old, she was, 2 or 3 doors down, Pat? And then my mum and dad had bought this house that they couldn't really afford, so they worked every hour that God sent them. So we were raised by a nana. She was an elderly lady who was an old neighbour, and she had a son who was a nightclub owner in London. And then when he passed away, he bequeathed his record collection to us. So these boxes of records, I mean, original Rolling Stones, original Bob Dylan, original Sinatra, Peggy Lee, the variety performance ones, Pat, remember them? He used to collect. I think Uncle Bill was a wee bit camp, so he liked his Peggy Lee and his variety performances. Obviously his Dylan and his Beatles and his Stones and
Rubber Soul and so forth.
So it took us quite a while to go through that record collection, but Mum bought us an old white Fidelity record player that sat in one of the sides of the bay windows in the living room. And then we went through Uncle Bill's record collection. And that was very formative for 2 young guys.
Yeah, I mean, that's what a sort of collection to kind of get into, to be gifted and to kind of take the time to go through at a young age.
And then because I was playing piano, there was lots of slowing down the records to try and work out what they were playing. So there was a lot of that going on with me. And then when I got to school, 13 years old, I started playing saxophone. And we had quite a healthy music department in the school that Pat and I went to, so they were very encouraging for anybody that showed any signs of wanting to be involved in entertainment.
And in terms of singing, I mean, I just remembering we had a real one singer, one song tradition at Christmas parties, so everybody had to have that. And then the other thing for myself would be a stage show every year from that music department. Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, whatever you wanted to do. And I was in most of them, as well, some major lead part. So yeah, actually, when you think about it, it's quite a rich stew of influences. And then along comes punk and post-punk, and that's a whole different experience.
The one singer, one song, all the parties, I can mind the same sort of recollection for Hogmanay's gone by. It's kind of, I died in a block of flats, six in a block. Come Hogmanay, every door was open, you could just go between all the flats. That sense of community and kind of belonging, and as you say, like the one singer, one song, it gets you that way where you're no scared to perform in front of your peers and your relatives and all that. So, I mean, that probably gives you a heads up right away for once you get into music, because you're no fear to anything then.
Well, certainly some of our uncles and aunties, you'd have to be feared of them, that's for sure. if you weren't, if you weren't, if you weren't at a certain mark. But you're right, because everybody. I mean, I remember we had an uncle. Oh God, I've forgotten his name now. The Edinburgh one's Dowdles, not Dowdles.
Dylan, Mike.
Uncle Mike, he would do this version of Solitaire. And solitaire's the only game in town, and every road that takes me down. And he would completely deliver it, and he didn't have much of a voice, but I mean, he completely lived that song to the nth degree, to the very last lyric. That was him. He was Solitaire. Solitaire was him. So it's a great tradition. It's very, very formative.
At what point then, obviously, if you were doing piano and you were into your singing performative side, Pat, at what point did it come together and it become, right, we're going to be a band and we're going to take it seriously?
You go, Greg?
There's different recounts of this, isn't there?
Yeah.
I was in, when Pat was talking about the punk thing, because I was playing piano and saxophone, there wasn't much need for me when it came to punk music, so I kind of watched a wee bit from the sidelines as all my friends put punk bands together. But thank God for the Beat and UB40, because I eventually needed a saxophone, so I was in, and Boomtown Rats a wee bit. When I was in young punk bands, we could all play. Our lead singer was a handsome, Mark was a big handsome guy, but we'd no words. So I asked Pat if he could write us some words, and he would jot down some things and give us some paper, and I'd bring it into the room, and Mark would love it, and he said, "Oh, when you sing, this is great." So Pat started writing lyrics for a punk band I was in, and in another band I was in, the singer left, and the bass player tried to play bass and sing at the same time, but he couldn't do it. It was quite embarrassing, actually, some of those rehearsals. He just couldn't separate. So I said, why don't we get my brother in? And they said, what, the swotty guy? Because Pat was a bit of a swot at school. I said, aye, Pat can sing and he can write words. So Pat came in, and it worked out great, and we did a couple of demo sessions in the studios, and we got played on the radio as this band called the Winning Losers. But then Pat and I started to write songs for them, and they hated the songs, so they chucked us out.
Yeah, we're booted out.
And then we did some things on our own. We went through to Palladium Studios in Edinburgh as a kind of duo, and that's where the Cocktail Twins did a lot of their stuff, the guy John Turner. And we did some demos there, and again they got played on the local radio stations in Glasgow, and that kind of attracted the attention of managers and record companies and other people. So yeah, it kind of happened quite naturally when I think about it.
So, like, what's the age difference then? Obviously, there's 2 years between used to, but you've got another brother as well. What's the age difference with him?
He was born.
Was it somebody?
So 4 years. My mum wanted a girl, and when my younger brother Gary John was born, the midwife says, "Oh me, you've not got your ballerina."
So was there never any thought?
So for the
He's
first
about 6'2".
for the first 2 years, we called him Mary Catherine.
Was there never any thought of getting him involved? Because obviously, I see he's played bass with the Proclaimers for a number of years.
He's not the biggest jazz fan in the world, as my wee brother.
Right.
But he's played a few times with us. In our heyday, I think our mum said, "Get Gary John on that stage." So we got Gary John on the stage, and he played some old soul stuff with us. No, he's done well with the Proclaimers. He's been with them 20 years.
Yeah.
So, and Charlie and Craig, obviously brothers in the music business, and their mother was a midwife, the same as our mother. So there's lots of kind of synergy there. I think they're starting to get up and running again. I see some pictures of those rehearsals and socials. Yeah. Fingers crossed it goes okay. I think they're going down to record their album in June. So we'll see what happens.
So we're talking like kind of mid to late 80s when everything started kicking off. So obviously the political environment that we were in, Thatcher Britain and stuff like that. How did that kind of shape your music? Was there any political side to your music back then, or how did you kind of deal with being a musician politically round about that period?
You were dancing around really, because we were interested in punk and post-punk. Everything had to have a message. So songs like I Refuse or Looking for Linda or Labour of Love all had social stories about them. Labour of Love was the voice of a working class Tory realising the scales falling from his eyes. So that's the twist of the song. So, but if you do the pop confidently enough, you can kind of get the message under the wire. And so Well, just at the time when there was a big general election in 1987, we were having songs in the charts with the chorus "Withdraw my labour of love, strike for the right to get into your heart." I mean, I'm not quite sure how we managed it, but we did manage it. We felt as if there was a wee bit of a silent approval on many of the DJs that were there to kind of get this record out. We said it might make a difference. But it's interesting. I mean, sometimes you think, have things ever changed with the rise of reform and so forth? You know. So the song when you play "Labour of Love" nowadays, it seems as relevant as ever. Sometimes it feels as if you're talking to sometimes the same constituency of people. You know. But there was lots of contradictions. You know, you were wearing designer suits and you're doing videos in Los Angeles and all the rest of it. So there's no shortage of the cry of hypocrisy of designer, the champagne socialist, the Bollinger Bolshevik, whatever you want to call it. I take it on board, but I think that we were inspired by people like the Temptations and Sly and the Family Stone and Stevie Wonder. Not noticeably dour characters, not noticeably unflamboyant, but delivering amazing messages in their music, incredible stories of resistance and defiance and idealism. So that's how we cope with it as best we could.
And those early songs, like you touched about, Labour of Love, Looking for Linda, still, as you say, they still get that relevance today. But back then, they're like massive pop hits as well. So obviously, like you touch on your kind of jazz side, but those are just kind of pop classics now when you look back at them.
I think
Not much to do with me. Ask Gregory about that.
I think it's a looking back. But I remember there's a guy, Ian Smith, from our hometown. His nickname is Miff, which I thought was a great nickname, Miff. He always says to me, he says, that summer of '87, you couldn't avoid Hue and Cry. So things just, we great PR people. I mean, they were calling in favours from everybody. And in that year, we played with U2 and Madonna. So we were playing in front of massive audiences. And I guess the U2
was this in the Heathery?
No, Heathery Bar. Shut up, you. The Heathery Bar was the bar in Wishy that we, Davy Preston, used to drink in, Pat. We were talking about.
Oh my gosh. Oh my.
But infamously, U2 played in the Heathery Bar. Same as the Clash played in the Hall in Woodlands in Glasgow. So, what was I talking about? It was a summer, even though Labour Love only got to number 6 in the charts, it was the sign of the summer in the UK because we'd done those gigs with Madonna and the gig with U2. And we did, I think in 1 week, we did the Roxy, Top of the Pops, and Terry Wogan on a Saturday night in 1 week, and the front cover of the NME in the same week. So, I mean, I think things just aligned. So, I mean, I don't know if you can plan that. I don't think you can. It's just somebody, I mean, that cover of the NME that summer of August 87, the Smiths had split up that week, but they still decided to put two guys from Coatbridge on the front cover. I mean, I'd have put Morrissey and Johnny Marr on the front cover, to be honest. But they put Hue and Cry and a wee bit up the top saying Smith split. So there was lots of things just fell into place with us, and right time, right place, right song. I mean, we never kind of chased. We did an early version of, last year, the singer in Living in a Box, Richard Derbyshire, passed away. And I was kind of remembering he was an in-house producer for our publishing company, and they sort of tasked him with trying to make sense of these two jazz-loving guys from Coatbridge. And Richard made a kind of big, bombastic, Go West type version of Labour of Love. I mean, it was impressive. I mean, it was like, bloody hell, that's really good. But it still wasn't the sound that Pat and I were looking for. So the sound that we were looking for was more organic and more sort of Latin, jazz, soul, more leaning towards we weren't a soul band to such. It was more kind of Latin jazz, heavily influenced by Ian Dury and the Blockheads, and for me, Joe Jackson, early Joe Jackson, Looking for Girls, and Look Sharp and all that, and I'm the Man. All that stuff was really, and Pat was introducing me to Elvis Costello and all these sort of things. So yeah, we were a different to Pigeonholes. I guess because of those reasons, Labour Love was born. It was the perfect sort of example of how confused and confusing Hue and Cry were. We had big pop aspirations, but we loved our jazz and our Latin, and we were quite political, so that's what you got.
And those early albums, so like 87, 88, 89, 3 albums, like looking nowadays at like kind of young up and coming artists, they might go 5 years where they're drip feeding singles before they even think about an album. So for you to have 3 albums in quick succession, was that just a done thing in music at that time? And how do you feel it's changed now?
We had a very astute manager who sussed out pretty quickly that the two guys that signed us had just left Island Records, and they were looking after U2 and Robert Palmer and Bob Marley and Frankie Goes to Hollywood. They were looking after big acts, so they left to form their own thing with not much money. So they did a deal with Richard Branson. I think he lent them some money, but it wasn't enough to run a record company. So our manager said to us, I don't think these guys got enough money. Make as much music as you can, as quickly as you can. So, I mean, Pat and I have reflected upon it. What a workload. I can't believe. I remember all the pre-productions, and the two producers we used were Americans, so they would fly over to New York, or fly from New York over to Glasgow, and then Pat and I would go over there, and sometimes we'd bring some of the musicians with us. So it was a kind of a transatlantic thing, all constantly on the go. I can't believe, but that was our manager. He read the tea leaves and went, right, we need to do this as quick as possible. And he was right.
On the third album, Bittersweet, there's a Michael Mara cover, Mother Glasgow, which is just that. It's a truly beautiful song, which signifies Glasgow for me. It signifies that time. When I think of Mother Glasgow, I think of all the stuff round about the 80s, like Gregory's Girl and all that sort of stuff, all the Hogmanay shows, Scotch and Rye and all that. All kind of blends into one. How did that song come about? Obviously, did you approach
Well,
Mike?
no, it was, we did, I can tell you specifically when I first heard it, was a gig in the Third Eye studio, recently known as the CCA, recently closed down. And it was the lineup. I don't know why this was the case, Gregory, but I was singing a cappella. Marty Pello was singing with his keyboard player. Deacon Blue were on. Paul poured into the CCA. And then Michael Mara was in the mix. And he did two songs. A song called Australia Instead of the Stars, which is still completely beautiful, and Mother Glasgow. And I remember saying it, going to after him. I said that was because he was like a Scottish Tom Waits. He was full of brilliant stories, brilliantly crafted lyrics, just enough Scots to make him distinctive, but just enough blues to make him soulful. And I remember going up to him and saying, I'd love to sing that song. We'd love to sing that song. And he was like, you do what you want, spell my name right, you know. Every time we play it, and we play it in every gig, right up to last week. Always trying to make sure to remember to say this song is by the late great Michael Mara, rather than give the impression that we'd written this. But the reason why it fitted is because we were doing piano vocal tracks as well as the big bombastic funk soul orchestra things. So it fitted right into. We were already singing Kate Bush and Tom Waits and Elvis Costello songs as well, Shipbuilding. So you stand on the shoulders of giants, as they say, as the old phrase has it, and Michael is definitely one of those for me. I like the way we do it. I think it's interesting. I've sung it so many. How many times do you think we've sung that song, Gregory? Thousands, probably thousands, at least thousands.
One of the last times I spoke to Michael, he bought me a pint, and he says, "Thanks for putting my Wayne through school, Greg." This is my pleasure.
Yeah, our pleasure.
He came from Lochee and Dundee, didn't he? Which is probably similar to Coatbridge and all the areas that I grew up in as well. So it's that kind of the working class environment. That is probably, there's a lot to do with that connection. Obviously, you mentioned as well, Pat. You mentioned the CCA, which I had never heard of up until a couple of months ago. I got a ticket, so I'm going to see Dave McCabe of the Zootons. So initially he was playing at CCA.
Yeah.
So it must have shut down recently then.
Yeah,
shut down recently.
I think it's to go and see a guy called Clark, who's an old electronic guy from the 90s, and it was at the CCA, and I was so looking forward to it, going, this is going to be brilliant. And then it was October that it closed, so I went to St Luke's over next to the Barras.
I'd never heard it, and I love it if I'm going to a gig and it's somewhere I've not been. And I thought I was really excited, and then it get moved, so he moved it to Cottairs. And I thought, I've never been there, that's brilliant. I don't mind, I'll go to this one. Then I got an email just last week, so it's on Monday. He's moved it again from the Cottairs to the Hug and Pint. So
poor promoters. I saw the Blue Nile in the Cottairs.
Yeah, you go.
Many moons ago. That was a brilliant gig. Cottairs. We've played it a few times. There's some, if you go onto our Patreon, patreon.com/Hue And Cry, there's a whole, I think there's about 8 songs from a gig we did in Cottairs, Pat. It was an amazing gig.
No, I remember who was playing Mario Caribbean bass and stuff.
And then the guy only recorded it onto DAT, so it's as it is, but it's so good because that place sounds so good. But you sang so well, my God. Sonny, I think Sonny Cries on that. There's a live version of the Harry Connick tune.
Yeah, yeah. That's when I had a voice.
So I can't recommend Courtiers enough. And they're quite. It's on the circuit now. The gigs. I think James Grant and what's his face, Bernard Butler and Norman Blake did the things at Courtiers. Did a weekend there, and you get acts that are kind of a wee bit higher. They'll do a weekend, so they must do them a good deal. Where they think, well, we can just stay up rather than play somewhere a bit bigger. They'll just play Courtiers, and it's in a beautiful part of the West End of Glasgow as well. So yeah, I'm a big supporter.
I mean, last year I think was the first time I've been to the Oran Moor as well.
Do you not get out much? No.
Here I'm out at gigs all the time, but
Where are you at gigs at Heathery Bar? Glasgow's a UNESCO city of music. Come on.
I know. Well, there last month I was at the art school. That's the first time I've been in the art school as well.
How old are you? 7? Do you know what? I walked over. I met my pals for a pint in the State Bar just off Suckyall Street last week. I got off the 17 bus at the other side of Garnet Hill and I walked right over. That's Scott Street by St Aloysius College and the Art School Union. God, it's a sorry place, isn't it? That's the whole kind of side entrance to the ABC part and all that, and the art school. It's absolutely horrific. It's so sad. And then I was telling my pals about it when I got to the pub. I was saying, God, the art school in Scott Street's just so horrible. And my mate Kenny's like, see all these alumni that all pipe up about how brilliant it was? They should all just chip in and just get it fixed. Yeah. Get it fixed. Stop complaining. You're all multi-millionaires. Chip your money in and get it fixed. If nobody else is going to do it. So I was like, all right, Kenny, that's quite a good one. I like that one.
So after those 3 albums then into the 90s, and a lot more different sounds coming into the records, is that just because obviously on those first 3 albums you kind of cemented yourself and you're then able to kind of to change things up a bit? You've got that kind of that reputation to fall back on.
I think in the early 90s, right up to we start to do the records with Lynn Records in mid 90s. I think we're trying. I mean, you disagree, Greg, if you like, but I think we're trying to redefine our pop chops, and trying to write big songs again and make big albums. I mean, but also I think we're trying to rely on our own talents as much as we can. Although Showtime's a big record, that was effectively a collaboration with a guy called Richard Niles. But that didn't feel right either. And so we kind of ended up, I don't know how we got onto Lynn Records, Gregory. I can't even remember the process. But
I think what Martin's talking about, the 90s records would be Stars Crash Down.
Right, is that what you mean?
Yeah, I think that's it.
All right, well, still shooting for the moon with Stars Crash Down, still trying to write the best record we ever could. I mean, that's your motivational factor when you're doing any record, is you're trying to make something that could be regarded as a classic. I mean, I think that's I don't think I would be embarking on music with Gregory if I didn't think we were going to maybe try and create some classic sounds or classic tracks that shoot for the moon. Just try and do everything that a pop song can do: make you dance, make you cry, make you laugh, make you think, get you agitated. So all those albums, every one of those, any of these albums that we make have that kind of ambition, I think.
And once you signed to Lynn Records, you signed on the basis of like a trilogy of albums, which only 2 ended up coming to fruition. So what was behind that? Was it just kind of a change in musical climate?
I think, we had 3 albums in our manifesto, and nobody ever lives up to their manifestos, do they?
Yeah, many areas.
We did 2 jazz albums for Lynn. The reality of jazz is jazz musicians really, really celebrate being poor. It's kind of a part. Are you a jazz musician? Yeah, well, you're poor then. But if you're kind of... Those gigs were tough. I remember doing the Cork Jazz Festival. We did a week at the Cork Jazz Festival.
Chaos.
I'm not saying we were in a tent, but a tent would have been a bit more luxurious than where we were. And I think at one point, Pat, you and I looked at each other and went, this jazz thing is like, we like a bit of luxury.
We like some bourbon creams with our tea.
At least.
And the joke, that all proves the joke about how do you make a jazz musician a millionaire? You give him £2 million.
Yeah, so I mean, we had a great time in Lynn. We made 2 fabulous albums that still get spoken about today, but it was hard work for not much return. And I think the kind of, I don't know, the realists in us went, you know what, this is an awful lot of work.
Yeah.
Not getting much back. But we did it. There's one of the reasons that I have remembered doing it for is during our pop career, you weren't allowed to mention the J word. Even in interviews, the people would say, "Don't mention jazz. Don't puts people off. Puts people off." And then after your pop career peaks and you come back down, I saw that as the opportunity to go, well, we could be one of the biggest jazz bands because, we'll take some of the fans with us. And that's why Lynn Records signed us because they saw an opportunity. And it kind of worked like that. Those albums did really well for Lynn and did really well for us. So, but a lot of hard work being a jazz musician. We play with some of the best jazz musicians in Scotland that make up our backing band. And you see they see the things they do other than play in front of 2,500, 3,000 people with us at these big venues, and you think, goodness me, it's just.
What a picture for you.
That's all part and parcel of being a jazz musician.
Yeah.
So I think they like coming to play with Hue and Cry because they get a bit more than a custard cream. You might get a four-fingered Kit Kat.
It's funny though that you say that. So like we're talking like kind of the second album came out in '99, and then obviously there's a period where you stepped away a wee bit. But see, once you look, it's only 6-7 years. Jamie Cullum, Amy Winehouse, all this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were steeped in jazz.
Right.
We in like 5 or 6 years, jazz is kind of the next big thing, and everybody's into it.
Your timing has always been immaculate, Martin.
So in those intervening years, what were you up to?
I was working with lots of other bands. I was working with the Scottish National Jazz Orchestra as an engineer. So I kind of went more towards engineering and front of house sound and stuff like that. And I think, Pat, you were involved in a newspaper, weren't you?
Well, I was involved, started up the Sunday Herald in 1999 and went and wrote a book called The Play Ethic in 2004. And in the run up to that book, I was doing consultancy, creative, using my sort of experiences in the music business and as a writer to help organisations come up with better ideas for their products and services. That's what I was moving into. I enjoyed it. It took me around the world. Actually, it took me all to at least 4 continents. Not the only one missing was Africa. Still doing it. It still continues a tiny wee bit at the moment. But I think we would do the occasional gig together, right? Someone would sort of drag us out of the undergrowth and pull us together and to do the occasional spot gig. But I think the thing that brought us back together to be doing stuff like this and to be regularly producing records again was this TV show, Hit Me Baby One More Time, the Saturday night TV show that we did for ITV. That was an achievement for me and Gregory to decide to do it in the first place, because I think he was going off in a very indie band direction. I was going off in another direction, but I said, come on, darling, let's do it. Let's get our glad rags on. Let's jump in the limousine, for God's sake. Let's just
I was on tour with the Kings of Leon when you phoned me.
I beg your pardon. Pardon me.
India I was. Like, what? I'm not doing Saturday night TV.
So what were you doing with Kings of Leon? Were you doing like the live sound there?
So it was a young band called the Renells that I was the front of house and sort of tour manager for. So they got quite a big leg of the UK European tour of the Kings of Leon. It's good.
And in that time of working with them, you were thinking, I want to cover Beyonce's Crazy in Love.
No, it's when Pat phoned me and said, I want to go on Saturday Night TV, and there was a girlfriend of mine, not a girlfriend, a friend that was a girl, Claire, and her party piece was, she would get on top of the coffee table and do Beyonce's Crazy in Love, and every man had sort of diverting their gaze, and her husband's watching us all like, don't you look at my wife, but she was particularly beautiful, so you were kind of peering through your fingers. And then she said, they all knew about this TV show, and she said, you should get Pat to sing that. I said, why? She said, it kind of reminds me a wee bit of Labour Love, the verse. All right. So I kind of mentioned it to Pat, and I think our drummer at the time, Paul Mills, is an American drummer, and he mentioned the band Skylights, which the cover "Are You My Woman?" That's the that's the riff. That's a sample that Jay-Z and all that used, and he sort of played us some stuff for the Shylights, and I really liked that, and I thought, God, this stuff's great, old 70s Chicago soul. So musically it kind of worked for me. That's one of the few guys that can sing Crazy in Love. I remember listening to him sing it. In fact, on the album that it's on, Open Soul, at the very beginning of it, there's a wee kind of prelude to it, and it's him making a cup of coffee, or a cup of tea, singing it in my kitchen. And it really, I don't know, it just really suits his voice. We played it recently. We played it at the
Tartan Clef Awards.
Yes, we played it. It was requested that we play it, so we were on at the end at just after midnight, and of course the dance floor's full of these wonderful looking ladies giving it full B and enjoying every minute of it. as I remember.
But contact lenses in at that point.
But yes, and the TV show's production team were a young production team. And Kay was the presenter. He's always been really supportive of us, and we get treated so well. And I remember after it was all said and done, we asked the production team if we could get some of the data, like how many people phoned and voted for us, blah, blah, demographics, stuff like that. So there was nearly 160,000 people all across the UK voted for Hue and Cry. So that's 160,000 people picking up a phone, spending whatever the charges was to say Hue and Cry. So, I mean, that was, Pat and I kind of reflected upon that and thought, right, let's try and find them. How do you find this? Is all pre-Facebook, pre-social media. How do you find 160,000 people other than get their phone numbers? So, I mean, the production company didn't give us their phone numbers, but they just gave us some of the data. So some of the research that we did, these people would be on, there's no email addresses, there's addresses. So we had to devise a way of trying to find these people, and we kind of created something called the Hue and Cry Music Club, which was Facebook, a social media platform that we built, and every time we did a gig, we would flyer it with, like, you know, little postcards and stuff like that, and we gathered our tribe, and we got to about 7,000 members, and then Facebook kind of took over everything, so we migrated it over to Facebook. So, I mean, Pat and I capitalised on that TV show as much as we could, and then that was also the rise of these music festivals, Let's Rock and Rewind and all these things that were incredibly popular. And then because we'd done that show and we'd done well on the show, we were put forward to do these things. So yeah, that felt like the kind of beginning of the 80s revival for me.
Yeah, because all those festivals are massive now. Like, I had Retrofest done here as well. And obviously that's when you kind of, after this period, you supported Jamie Cullum as well, Hogmanay appearances, stuff like that. So all of that mixed in is kind of aided the comeback, and obviously all the work you put in with the research, with the getting this fan base back together. And then once you look at kind of that going forward, it's kind of, for then on, it's sold out tours, album, another sold out tour, just chucking in wee support slots here and there, opening for Al Green, stuff like that. So does it feel kind of like this is like the second coming of Hue and Cry?
Third coming, I think. I mean, sort of.
Show off.
Well, third coming, first pop, 80s, early 90s pop. Second, following our nose musically, just where we wanted to go for about a decade. And then getting really good management. Dougie Soonis is the guy who manages us, and we formed a company with him. And he's a great guy. But he's a great capitalist. He knows how to ask for money. He knows how to try and make money. He's got strong instincts for how to do that. An example would be what the new album that we've got coming out has got a beautiful box set with it. He's got a wall of box sets in his office, so he knows exactly what he's talking about. But he also knows how to get people to pay money for special things, and he knows how to ask artists to put special stuff into these boxes, merchandise. So the act of buying something becomes a special thing for Hue and Cry. You can buy an album any format you want, but there's always something special. It's always a gift element or a celebration element to it. And a lot of that is us, our ideas, but Dougie's doggedness. And I'm very grateful to him as a character and as a manager and as a collaborator, actually, a kind of colleague. So that helps. And what that does is it liberates you into thinking about making music, the best that it can be, rather than thinking too much, although we do think a lot about how to market stuff. And it's much better. I mean, the third age is also that you are completely eyes wide open. You know what's in the bank account. You know what you can spend. You know what you can't spend. So that's a kind of a grown-up way to do the music business. I don't think we were that grown up to begin with, but maturity has come upon us.
Which leads us then, to 2025, when you were awarded the Outstanding Achievement Award at the Scottish Music Awards.
Still standing, we call it a Still Standing Achievement Award.
Well, I mean, it's after 40 years of Hue and Cry, so how did that feel then to kind of get that recognition?
Fabulous. Well deserved.
I dined out on it for a week. All my pals, and I said, you've got a week. Right, you could be outstanding for a week and then that's it over. So yeah, I ripped the ass out it for a week, which was quite funny. Quite enjoyed that. We played really well that night. The band were brilliant. And then I was a bit kind of That's the first time we've done sort of red top sort of interview sessions and press meet and greets. It's horrible, isn't it? Oh my goodness me. It's like, do something shocking, please, so I can write something shocking about you. And it's like, well, it must be tough out there. You know, either both ends of it. As a journalist, it must be really, really, really tough. And as an artist trying to do something shocking, that was the bit that I took
Yeah.
away from all that. I enjoyed the band's performance. We did well. We looked well. Those photographs looked great. But that press round of half interested, do something shocking, please. Or why are you not doing anything shocking? Do you not know the rules now? All that. Well, that's the takeaway I took from it all going, I need to be careful. Pat and I are getting a lot of attention again because of our new album. And we've got sort of some mainstream things coming up, and I'm going to have to get myself in a headspace for it because there's an imp in me that's that could. I know. We've got a thing happening at the end of. Is it this week? I need to get that out because I'm so tempted. Anyway,
As though an outstanding achievement to be recognised with and all the work that you've done throughout the years and for the length of career you've had, we basically really only a couple of years out when you look at it, that 40 years. I spoke to bands on the podcast. I spoke to one not that long ago that they were out in like the 80s around about Stone Roses period and they never brought an album out, and like 30 years down the line that's them releasing the album that they should have. So, you know what I mean? It could have went the other way, whereas yous have been that 40-year period basically still releasing music.
It's kind of stunning. I mean, I think that was my thing about the outstanding achievement, and also the 40th anniversary tour that we did up and down the country as well. It's kind of it's a very up and down world, flexible, intermittent world. Things happen, break apart, start up again, break apart again. I mean, I think the 40 years has very much been based on the fact that we're brothers and we're simpatico on a deep level. Also, I think that we admire each other. I think that helps. But also, I think certainly I think we're curious, eminently curious. Gregory never sees a music technology that he doesn't want to get his hands into and wring its neck so that something different can happen with it. And that's been the ways. I mean, I've always turned up to Gregory's house and some new bit of technology has assailed me from whatever. It's happening next week, probably, or this week again. So, of a mood. I know what you're saying, Gregory, about red top press, but I'm of a mood to bask in my own glory over these 42 years. I'm just warming my hands at the fire because there's nothing else to do. Because if they deploy tactical nuclear weapons in the theatre of war in the Middle East, so in the meantime, enjoy your once 42 years of consistent musical exploration and soul searching. Why not?
Which leads us to this new album, Everybody, out May the 29th. So tell us a bit about the album. I spoke to Greg obviously before we started recording. It still sounds fresh. It sounds like it's of this time, but it's got the Hue and Cry sound as well. Maybe just the two of you speak a bit about the album, how it came about, and what sort of messages are in it for people that are maybe swivering whether to part with their cash for it.
swithering whether to part from their cash. I like it, Martin. Aye. Basically, give me your pitch, you two. All right.
All right.
You going to go, Pat, or will I go?
I think you should go and I'll follow up.
Most of the reviews we've had saying it's undeniably Hue and Cry, but it's very of now. Because Pat and I made it, it's going to sound like Hue and Cry. It's what we've not really. We'll just follow our instincts when we make music. We don't really set out with a plan and adhere to it. We kind of let it just take its own sort of journey, and it's where it goes. And we're experienced enough now that if it's going far too one direction, we can haul it back musically. This was a journey for me. I didn't know much about electronic music 6 years ago when Pat said I want to make an electronic album. Now I know everything about electronic music. So this record was made when I was learning. So there's lots of happenstance. There's lots of fortune. There's lots of. When I listen back to it, I thought I would peering through. Sometimes I listen back to it, I just turn it off because I can't listen to it again. But there's a youthfulness and a naivety about it from the musical point of view, which is really attractive to me. It's like watching an old guy, listening to an old guy learning how to do new stuff, and he's quite good at it. And you kind of go, right, okay. So I don't know. It's the first album of ours for it's a 16th album, and it's the first one for a long time I can listen to on repeat. And I don't know what that means, Pat, but I don't know. It seems to be near perfect for me. There's never a moment I go, I'll flick forward or
Yeah, I think. I mean, some dates are important. So we wrote it in the year before COVID lockdown. Now it's interesting, and it's a very energetic, optimistic sounding record. Myself, I was in a tiz. I was kind of struggling with where I am in the world. What are the powers that I can resist and that I can assert? What's the state of the planet ecologically minded? Virtual reality was and cyberspace were kind of like doing all the things that they were doing. So there's a ball of confusion in my head. And when I look back at the lyrics, I can see all that. It's almost as if pop music can be quite prophetic. We can anticipate things happening in the future. It's like an early warning system, like a radar system. It can pick up on early tremors. And so the lyrics are kind of individuals struggling with their complicated environments and sometimes succeeding and sometimes not. And sometimes rushing for love as a solution to it and sometimes rushing for technology as a solution to it. It's a complicated world lyrically, but a lot of the music of it is literally, as Gregory says, us struggling with a level a level of electronica which goes its own way. The classic thing when you switch on an arpeggiator or a hydrosynth in the morning, you're not quite sure what it's going to do. So there's a sense in which the machines are setting the pace for a lot of this record. And I'll be honest, it's also me having been a kind of bit of an electro punk in the late 70s, and Gregory footering around with the machinery and me going, that's the noise, and he's going, that's not the noise, that's a terrible noise. No, that's the noise. Put a melody to that. So there's a lot of, if you listen carefully, we've got a single out, an Impact track, I beg your pardon, called Make My Day, which is out at the moment. And it sounds, at the surface, it sounds like just a driving house track. But if you listen to it very, very closely, there's some complete chaos in there. And that's because I wanted to keep it in because I wanted the machines to be in partnership with us almost. That was my vision, was that we were like centaurs, half human, half machine. And Gregory's got a quote from Robert Moog, the guy who created all the great 70s synthesizers, where he says something like, each of these synthesizers and sequencers and arpeggiators has a character, and work with those characters, work with what they bring to you that particular morning. So I think that's why you can listen to it over and over again, Gregory, because I think it's partly not you or not us,
there you go. Yeah, I never thought of that.
partly the machines themselves having a certain logic. And what's the story you can tell about the Eurovision song guy and what are the advice that he gave us?
Yeah, so when I started learning about electronic music 6, 7 years ago, the community is so helpful. What's his face? Vince Clark replied to me in a few things that I reached out in some forums. But this guy, Sam Battle, who was known as Look Mum No Computer, he was really supportive and he said, Greg, turn your computer off. You don't need your computer to do this. I said, well, I don't understand. How's it all going to work? He says, all the machines talk to each other. Make sure one machine's the primary machine and all the other machines are linked to it. So it tells you what the tempo is. It tells you pretty much what the arrangement is if you can program it to do that. But all the machines talk to each other via a language called MIDI, and do that and just turn the computer off. So I mean, it was a leap into the dark for me, but it worked. I mean, sometimes it was a wall of cacophony coming from these. There's like 27 of them on that wall through there in our studio, and I wouldn't use all 27 at once. They've all got their own distinct sounds, so I would maybe use one part of the wall, 8 or 9 synths at once, and then once it was making a noise that Pat liked, then we would then develop it. So I tried to make it as varied as I possibly could, but there was nothing under 123 beats per minute. There was stuff up at 150 beats per minute. We didn't want to make a kind of chilled out ambient electronica record. We wanted to make a kind of in-your-face pop electro record, which is what we've done. So yeah, it was a journey for me, but it was really so supportive. And then the guy that mixed the album, Johan Neville, I met him through these forums as well, and he'd mixed the Sugar Babes, Duran Duran, the Pet Shop Boys, Sophie Ellis Bextor, and because he'd been so helpful for me and we'd had so many different conversations, and we can't really afford a mixing engineer like that, but he said yes. Our business partner Doogie contacted him and he said I'd love to do it. So we've got a really high-end engineer that's mixed it, and I think he's brought a lot to it, Pat. People that I've talked to that say the record sounds great, and it's every time we do these radio interviews and you hear it in the radio studios, you think, oh, that sounds really good. And that's Johad's. Well, it's you and I, but it's Johad putting the finishing touches to it. So it's everything's kind of falling into place, Martin. You know,
It sounds amazing, and
I'm
if
pleased
if
with
this
it.
is an album we use just learning that stuff, I'm looking forward to the next album once you've mastered it completely.
Well, I'm pretty much on top of it now. I'm so on top of it now. I'm researching VJing. So a big
Right?
part of electronic music is the kind of animations. So there's two pieces of software I'm learning just now. One's called Resolume, and the other one's called. It used to be called Milk Drops, called Nest Drop now. So now I'm back to particles again with VJing. Yeah, because I know how all those synths work. I've said to Pat, I want to write another album. I know how the synths work. And
What did I tell you, Martin? What did I tell you? Every time I go up to the studio, there's another bit of bloody technology to deal with.
yeah, but yeah, I'm excited about the next one, Martin, because I think again, Pat and Greg's manifesto of three. We'll do three electronic albums. I'd like to get three out of this because I've spent a lot of time building the synth wall that's in the studio here, and the synths all pretty much do the same thing, but they're quite distinct in how they do it. So it's taken me a while to learn how to do it. So it would be a shame not to use that
I agree.
knowledge to go again, because it has been a good 6 years of learning, relationships falling to bits, daughters scratching heads going, Daddy, can we go out and do this? No, I need to learn how to do this. And eventually, there's a lot, I've kind of sacrificed quite a lot for it, so I'd like to go again at least a couple of more times.
Agreed. I second that emotion.
But then live, you've got to come and see Hue and Cry live, because I know I've got the synth set up live. I met Andy Gillespie, Pat, on Troon Beach. I was down walking, and Andy was a keyboard player with Simple Minds. Great keyboard player. He came after Mick McNeil. And he's like, I saw your post, you and Pat do your electronica thing. How are you doing that? And I said, well, it's just two synths. He says, a laptop? I says, there's no laptop. It's all me live, and then I've made it flexible enough so when Pat comes in, I can follow him. You can follow him? I says, aye, aye. He says, does it break down? I said, aye. How often? I said, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 times a set. What do you do? Have you get a backup? I says, no, just start again. It's again, I don't know where I've got the bravado from, because I'm not really like that. Sometimes there's been a few moments when I've played one of the songs for the first time, and I've been a wee bit nervous, but Pat's been, come on, this is brilliant, you're going to love it. And I'm going, Pat, calm this down, this might not go that well. And there's been a bit of friction there between the two of us, but it's just my kind of hesitancy compared to his kind of, this is going to be brilliant. And it invariably is brilliant. When I get the file, I film every one of our gigs with 7 cameras. I've been doing that since 2008. So we've got a vast archive of performances. And every time I get a month off, I'll just go through. I do gig reports, and there's a PDF with all the files, and I go through and I mention the songs. The night after we've packed all the gear away after a gig, I'll write down the songs that I thought were good. So I've got these gig reports going back, my God, 18 years. So I just go back. Once we kind of finished promoting our electronic record, we did a funk record called Hotwire, and there's a gig in Dunfermline. We played at the Carnegie Hall in Dunfermline.
Mm-hmm.
My God, there's about 8 tracks off it, so I'm going to go back to that. So I film all the stuff that we do. So we did a version of Stronger, which was the first Impact track off our new album, Everybody, and that was the one I was a bit nervous about, and Pat wasn't holding back. I was trying to hold back, but what a performance it is.
Yeah, it's great.
Like, I don't know what it is, what's wrong with me. Sometimes when you're in the depth of a performance, you can't be objective. You don't know if it's good or not. So I'm so glad that I have this discipline where I film everything. And then when you go back to it, you think, God, that was really good. I can't remember it being good when I was doing it. But there's the evidence there. So, yeah, playing the electronic stuff live is great fun. We've got a high pressure gig in London the week after next. So we'll see how well that goes.
Yeah, that all sounds amazing, and I mean the explanation for the album and everything that comes with it, that's made me more determined to come and see you live and
Yes.
to
Yes,
get the
man.
album. For all Hue and Cry fans are going to love it, and I think it's you're going to put in a lot more with the stuff you're
Here's
doing.
hoping. It's the plan.
So on the socials, you can see it. On the socials, you can see people sort of going, I didn't really think about you before, but this is great. And they've usually got the kind of suffix DJ or whatever they kind of use to kind of indicate that they're, doing a bit of DJing at some point. So, yeah, it's all positive, Martin. I can't, just waiting for the fall. Because the music business is all about peaks and troughs. So we're on a peak right now. So it's the only way you can go from a peak. Maybe not. Maybe a higher peak. I don't know.
Maybe
Yeah.
higher before we fall cruelly to the ground from the higher peak.
So
40 years in the music business. We know.
it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you.
Thanks,
The
Martin.
last part of the podcast, obviously, it's called Time for Heroes. I asked my guests, I don't know if the PR told you this part. I asked my guests to pick 4 heroes to come for dinner. Why are they your heroes, and what would you cook for them?
You take 2, Greg.
You take 2, I'll take 2.
Can be dead or alive. They can be musicians, sports, whatever you want. They can be.
I thought you would be like, they can be dead or alive. You have to bring dead or alive. Can I bring Frankie Goes to Hollywood? No, dead or alive. Right, okay. I don't really know much about dead or alive. All right, have I to go first? Oh my goodness. First one's got to be Jesus Christ, isn't it? As you said, anybody you want. So God's Son and Michelle Obama.
Oh, right, okay. High bar.
It doesn't get much higher than that, Pat. Sorry.
No, not really. Not really. Okay, I'd probably, oh, Christ.
There you go.
Not him, done him.
We'll go a different track then. They're at the same dinner table, so you can talk to Jesus and Michelle as well.
Right, well, it has to be,
There.
Stevie Wonder. Has to be there. And in terms of non-music, if I had any hero that would come to the table, it would be Shakespeare.
There's a table.
I'd bring Shakespeare and sit up next to Stevie Wonder and get them writing songs together.
With Michelle Obama and Jesus Christ.
With Obama and Jesus
There's a
Christ.
table. What would we cook them though?
Spaghetti bolognese.
Would you not have your oak smoked artichokes?
No, but they would be in the mix.
You
But
can't
spaghetti,
go wrong with spaghetti bolognese.
Was the last. When's this happening? Martin, can you make this happen?
tons of Merlot.
I can try. I mean, I'm nearly at 150 episodes, and we've basically set up 150 dinner parties. So I don't see why this one can't happen.
Well, we've got AI now. I'm going to go into AI after this and make it happen.
Aye, cracking bunch of heroes, and it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. Wish you all the best with the album coming out, and I'll be looking at coming to see you.
Well, make yourself known when you come, Martin. Be nice to see you. Nice to meet you.
Especially if you're playing somewhere new that I haven't been at.
We're going to come play the Heathery Bar. Make it happen.
The Arlington Bar, see you there.
But aye, it's been an absolute pleasure, boys. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy everything that comes with the album.
Thanks.
All right, man. Thank you so much. See you next time. Bye.
Thanks again for listening to the podcast. If you'd like to get in touch, please contact me on the email timeforheroespod@gmail.com, or you can get me on Instagram at timeforheroespodcast. Thanks very much. We'll be back soon with another episode.